Hello and welcome to Vedic Astrology with Renu. In this video, we are going to learn how Vedic astrology sits at the intersection of science and spirituality. Using the example of the birth date of India's independence from the British in 1947, we are also going to learn about a very important concept in Vedic astrology called Muhurta, which is the Vedic art and science of choosing an auspicious date and a precise time for new beginnings. On September 25, 2014, India's spacecraft successfully reached the orbit of Mars after a grueling 10-month journey. Rocket science and spirituality were in full display at the Hindu temple the same day. Following in the traditions of his predecessors, the chairman of the Indian space program was seen at the temple praying and meditating for the success of the mission for the miniature replica of the rocket. Most modern cultures and societies around the world, including India, continue to grapple with the standoff between science and spirituality. But there's something unique in the Indian culture, where analytical and faith-based thinking exist with much less tension and much more fluidity and acceptance. According to scientific research at Case Western Reserve University Brain, Mind, and Consciousness Lab, this conflict between analytical thinking based on evidence of the senses and spiritual thinking based on faith and visceral awareness is as old as thought itself. Using MRI, the scientists have been able to show that when presented with a physics or a science problem, or a spiritual reasoning or ethical dilemma, a healthy brain fires up the appropriate network while suppressing the other. Their research suggests that humans evolved to engage and explore both networks, and optimal thinking is the dynamic interplay of both. Disengaging in one over the other can be detrimental to both the individual and society at large. Ancient India was a land of sages, saints, and seers, as well as a land of scholars and rational thinkers and scientists. Ancient India's contribution to science and technology, including mathematical concepts of zero, algebra, square roots, cube roots, and calculus, made modern science possible. But science and rational thought were pursued with a passion, without demystifying existence, and producing some of the greatest Vedic sciences, like mantra, Ayurveda, yoga, Vedic astrology. All of these exist on the intersection of science and spirituality. Modern Indians love science. Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India after independence from the British in 1947, even wrote into the Indian Constitution the importance of developing a scientific temper as one of the fundamental duties of the Republic. From the onset, India has invested heavily in science and technology education. The ancient science of Vedic astrology is a thousands of years old proven method of spiritual inquiry built into the religion, myths, rituals, festivals, ceremonies, and psyche of the Indian culture. Vedic astrology is a perfect example of a Vedic science that simultaneously utilizes both the analytical and the intuitive brain. It's highly mathematical and scholarly, utilizing ancient algorithms and calculations that have been passed down for thousands of years. At the same time, interpreting the enormous amount of data that is revealed in the horoscope requires developing deep intuition, instinct, and spiritual perception to know what is useful and what is not at any given time. Vedic astrology is the science of time. It works by understanding the cycles of nature. Every moment of time in nature contains its unique destiny, its unique seasons. This applies not just to an individual's birth time, but also to that of any new beginning. We are all aware of the visible cycles of time, like dawn and dusk, that give way to the dark night. and the promise of a new life in the spring that cycles into the death of winter. But we need the insight of Vedic astrology to illuminate similar cycles invisible to the senses, the time cycles of the mysterious and hidden planetary forces that wield profound influences on our life. Muhurta is the Vedic art and science of choosing an auspicious date and a precise time for a new beginning. It is a thousands of years old tradition dating as far back as the Rig Veda, and it is still practiced extensively in India today. The primary reason most Indians consult an astrologer is to select an auspicious date for marriage. At the same time that India was writing into its constitution the importance of creating a scientific temper for its people, there was a fierce debate going on among the prominent astrologers about finding an auspicious date and time for the official birth of the nation. Let's look at how India got its birth date and its midnight birth time. When the British government first proposed August 15th, 1947, as the official date for independence from British rule in India, there was intense collective opposition by the nation's prominent astrologers, as they considered this to be a very unfortunate and unholy date. A Vedic horoscope cast for this birth date indicated that India would have to begin its journey under the stern and punitive eye of Saturn dasha, or planetary period, as well as what Indian astrologers consider the most difficult transit of Saturn over the moon, called sati. But Lord Mountbatten, the British Viceroy to India at that time, was locked into this date. When the astrologers had no say in choosing an auspicious date, they proposed a compromise to mitigate some of the potential negative effects of this birth date. They asked that India's time of birth be the midnight hour between August 14th and 15th. A strange time indeed to conduct the official business of the transfer of power between the leaving British government and the new Indian government. The astrologers stipulated that the transfer of power be conducted between 11:51 p.m. and 12:39 a.m. and that all the speeches be finished by midnight, because this 48-minute window, called the Abhijit Muhurta, is considered to neutralize some of the effects of an inauspicious time. Both the British authorities and the new Indian leaders complied to their wishes, and the official business of the transfer of power took place swiftly and without fanfare in the middle of the night. Another important feature of this birth time was that it gave India a Taurus ascendant, a fixed earth sign favored for building a strong foundation for new endeavors and material prosperity. The astrologers were pleased because this date and time also put the moon in the favorable Pushya Nakshatra star constellation of spiritual knowledge, morality, and integrity. Sadly, as predicted by the astrologers, India's birth date of August 15, 1947 turned out to be a very inauspicious date. The moment the British left, Mahatma Gandhi watched his non-violence movement turn to ashes as civil war consumed the country. We must remember that while Vedic astrology attempts to mitigate and remedy difficult karma, the call of destiny is much greater than any astrological system or calculation. Thousands of years of the Vedic and yogic tradition prepared India for this historic moment where modern scientific temper met ancient knowledge of astrology for a midnight birth. When Indians place both hands together in front of their heart to say Namaste, which is both a mantra, a sacred sound, and a mudra, or a sacred gesture, it is a literal and symbolic pairing of the opposites, the left and the right, matter and spirit, yin and yang, science and spirituality, a reconciliation, interaction, and union of the contradiction inherent in nature, what is seen and what is hidden. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. In a future video, I'll show you the birth date and birth time of the United States and how Vedic astrology interprets and explains the current political climate.